Hey guys, it is Christina here. Welcome back to session number 2 in, oh, that's not one, that's 2. Oh my goodness, it's been a day. And so welcome back. This is session number 2 in a series that, like a mini series that I'm doing here on Coaching Academy and looking at the things that coaches do. Like, I talked last night about what a coach does and how a coach can help you, and some of the things that you think about when you are actually a coach. And tonight I'm going to talk a little bit more about that type of stuff. Let's see, can I get this straight? It's annoying me. So if you're on live, say hi, let me know you're here. If you are watching replay, hashtag replay or hashtag I've arrived or the party has come, whatever you want to put in there. Hashtag it, put it in there. I would love to see you come along, and I would love to feel your energy. So I can see there are a couple of people here. Hi to you. Welcome to this discussion. I really want to encourage you, if you have anything that you want to add to the conversation, put it in the comments. Don't leave this conversation with stuff that you need to take away and do, because essentially what I'm talking about is limiting beliefs. Hi Diane, nice to see you here, and thank you. That lets me know that the comments are working as well. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Christina Mathewson. I am a naturopath and coach, and I work with people on all sorts of different things. So I often in this space work on their health and help them create the mindset to be able to create and take the action that they need to have the health that they want. I also help people who are wanting to become coaches themselves or already have a coaching business and want to have that support from a mentor who's done it before. So I'm doing both of those things, and I want to welcome you along to this space. Tonight I'm going to really talk about limiting beliefs. So if you know what a limiting belief is, put it in the comments. Yes, I know what that is, or I'm kind of not sure. So this word has kind of been thrown around in the self-development world for a little while now, and I hear it quite a lot. And I think that for some people it can be a little bit confusing about what it actually is. So I'm going to talk to you about my interpretation of what a limiting belief is, and then I'm going to share some of the things that I do to move past limiting beliefs, and then talk a little bit about how a coach can help you with that as well. So essentially, all of us have been born, ideally intact, where we're feeling lovable, worthy, and enough, and we have that feeling as we're born into the world. Some people don't. Some people have the oppression even before they're born, in utero and so on. And so essentially, hopefully we've all been born into the world thinking that we're lovable, worthy, and enough, and we possess all of these beautiful characteristics like emotiveness, where, if you think about a baby isn't able to control their emotions. A baby is just emotive. They experience the experience that they have, and they cannot stop themselves from expressing it. So we've all had that experience, hopefully if you've had that experience around babies where you see their little lip tremble because they're upset or they're unsure about something. You see them happy and they're gleeful and they smile, and I apologize for the background noise because my kids are getting organized for bed. Daylight savings throws us out. But you can see on a little baby's face that they're very emotive. They can't actually help themselves. They're happy or they're sad or they're tired, or they're all of those little cute, wonderful things that they actually are. And so that they can't help themselves. They can't actually go, oh, I shouldn't show people this emotion, because they have no filter there. They've not learnt to control that. They've not learnt that they need to control that in any way, shape, or form. They just are. And so also babies are spontaneous. Like, they can go from one moment they're crying to the next moment they're laughing, and they can spontaneously do things. So ideally we all come into the world with these characteristics of knowing that we are worthy, lovable, and enough, and that we're playful, we're spontaneous, we are resilient, we have all of these beautiful characteristics of all of that stuff, like playfulness, lovability, all of that, etc. We are all of those things. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm going to read that comment a little bit more in a second, Diane. But yeah, so we are all of those beautiful actual things. And then along comes the world, and the world says to us in the form of our magical big people, the people who are the gods of our lives, they start to feed back information to us that says that we're not lovable, that we're not worthy, that we're not enough, that we have to be quiet, that we can't be spontaneous, that we're not allowed to be emotive, that only some of those emotions are allowed and some of them are not allowed. And we have certain roles that we need to play in our family, and we learn throughout all of that conditioning to be who we might be today without any developmental work. So if you've done some developmental work, you might have moved past this. But for many people, we get to this space as adults and we are carrying the belief system that we have grown up with. So the things that we've been taught to be true is what we grow up with. And there is power in our mind. Like, our mind is actually a magnificent amplifier and also very powerful instrument that can actually help us or hinder us. And so when we are wanting to move forward, one of the things that we need to do is change our thinking and change how we think about things. So an example of this is millionaires, or no, here's the example, it's Tats Lotto. So let's say you won Tats Lotto and you became a millionaire. Now, there is a massively high percentage of people who win Tats Lotto and, you know, become really wealthy beyond their dreams that then lose it over time. So within about 5 years, they actually revert back to, or worse financially, than like revert back to where they were, or even worse financially than they were before they won the money. And why is that? Well, it's because they didn't change their thinking. Because the money instantly came to them, they didn't change how they thought about money. The money only amplified who they already were and how they already thought about money. So that millions of dollars that they might have won very quickly goes off into all sorts of different avenues because it's amplified what they already believe about money. And if they've got a belief that says, actually, I'm not worthy of money, then they're very quickly going to offload that money in many, many different ways. Versus somebody who has slowly and incrementally been able to create that wealth in their life. The person who slowly and incrementally created that wealth in their life, they actually develop skills along the way to start thinking differently. Because the person who is a low income earner, or has a low income wage, thinks differently about how they spend money and how they invest money. And this is just generalizing. I'm not saying this is everyone. This is a generalization. Thinks differently to somebody who's making $1 million a year. And they think about it in all sorts of different ways. And it's in the power of the thinking that we actually create the results that we want. And so in order to get to where we want to go, what we need to do is actually ask ourselves those questions. What is the version of me that has this thing or has created this thing, whether it be amazing relationships, all of those types of things? How do they actually think? What do they actually think about? And what are some of the things that they actually do? Because of course, somebody who is making a whole bunch of money is often thinking differently to somebody who's not. Now, that is again a generalization, so don't shoot the messenger. But in order for us to create something, we need to actually change our thinking. And the same can be, like I just used a money sort of example. The same can be health. So somebody who's got really fantastic health, and not that they haven't had any health problems, but let's say they've had some health problems, they've overcome their health problems, and they've got really fantastic health now. They think differently when they got their fantastic health than they did when they didn't have it. They think differently about what they put into their body, how they're going to manage their time, what influences they're going to allow into their space, who are the people they hang out with, all of that type of stuff. They think differently than when they were unwell. Because the thinking needs to change in order for the actions to change as well. So when we're talking about limiting beliefs, we're talking about the beliefs that keep us stuck or keep us stop taking the action that we want to be taking. So they can be self-sabotaging beliefs. And for me, this is one of the things that I work through pretty much on a daily basis, is to start to look and go hunting for my beliefs that keep me at the same space or the same level of thinking that I currently have. And I go looking for those and I start to challenge them, because just like I mentioned yesterday about the illusion of truth, like I was seeing my husband's shirt reflected in the window that made it look like there was somebody outside looking in at me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to go watch yesterday's Facebook Live. It's called Being a Coach. So I was looking out the window, I saw the reflection of his shirt, and it looked like somebody was looking in at me. The illusion was that there was somebody looking in at me. The truth was that his shirt was reflecting on the window. And it wasn't until he moved that I actually saw what the truth was, and not the scary thing that my perception had perceived. And so limiting beliefs work like that, that we believe the thing that we believe, which is actually just a reflection of what somebody else has taught us in the world. And we believe that to be true until we shift, because the belief is not going to shift, until we shift slightly and can see it from a different point of view. Let me know if you're following along and you're understanding what I'm saying. I would love to know. Is this making sense? Do I need to explain it more? Because I would happily do that. So Diane is saying, hi Christina, I did a naturopath course at the same time as you, but didn't finish it, unlike you. I am known a coach, but still have limiting beliefs that I can finish off course. Well, I can totally understand that. And you know, it's quite a hard course to finish off, especially when you get to, well, when I was doing it, because now that course doesn't actually exist. There's a different one that's available now. But yeah, getting towards the end of it, like they kept changing it. There was so much stuff. Oh my God. I can understand why you didn't get it finished. I probably came close to not finishing it myself just because of all of the stuff. So for me, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I actually go through and I start looking for those limiting beliefs. I start looking for the things that are going to not help me get to where I need to go. And this is what I do for my clients as well, as we start to look for, what are the stories that you have been told, or what are the stories that have happened in your life, and what meaning did you create out of them? Because it's often in the meaning that we create or we give things that actually our limiting beliefs are. And I've got here, I've just got my journal with me here, just flicking through to see if there's some great stuff that I am willing to share, because not everything is necessarily Facebook appropriate. But if you have any limiting beliefs, please feel free to pop them in the comments, because sometimes hearing somebody else's, hopefully we're back. Okay, let's hope it stays. But yes, sometimes hearing or seeing somebody else's limiting beliefs helps you actually start to unpack some of your own and see some of your own limiting beliefs. So essentially, the limiting belief is part of the rules that we live by subconsciously. So we can create limiting beliefs around all sorts of stuff. We can create it around food. We can create it around habits. We can create it around bedtime. For example, we might say, I can't go to sleep if I don't do this thing. Well, the truth is that actually, if you were tired enough, you probably could go to sleep. Or the truth is that actually, if we gave you some melatonin, you might actually go to sleep. The truth is, if we injected you with some anesthetic, you'd go to sleep. The truth is, if we gave you some gas, you'd probably go to sleep. So it's not actually the truth that if you don't do X, you can't go to sleep. It is, I've trained myself to go to sleep to this thing. This thing is what I've been using and helping me go to sleep. So often our language is a really big factor when it comes to finding our limiting beliefs, especially when we get into generalizations like all women are bad, or all men are assholes, or all X, Y, and Z is this thing, or this always happens to me. Those are when we're using generalizations that then actually create some limiting beliefs for us. Because if you believe all women are nasty, then what is the likelihood of you actually finding a woman who is actually going to be lovely? If you believe all women gossip, then what is the likelihood that you're going to find some really great friends that aren't gossips? The likelihood is low, because what you're doing is actually attracting into yourself the people that are going to fulfill and create the evidence for what you believe to be true. So all women are gossips. You're going to actually naturally attract to yourself, and you will naturally seek out women who are gossips and call them into your friendship circle so that you can create the evidence that that is true. So we create many of our beliefs when we're from that period of like birth, moving into around 7 and 8. From that point on, our brain switches. It moves from beta waves into alpha, beta, and delta waves. So it changes how the brain operates. And we form our beliefs in those early years, and then we walk out creating the evidence for those beliefs in our foundational years and then into adulthood, and we cement them as truth until we start to unpack them, until we start to decide we want something different, until we change our minds. And that's what we need to do when it comes to limiting beliefs, is actually set about changing our own minds. So when we're working on our limiting beliefs, some of the things that we have to do is start to figure out what they actually are. And this is a beautiful thing when we start to do things like a quest. A quest is a really useful way of finding some of your beliefs. So for example, a quest might be, for the next 30 days, I'm going to drink some Vital Greens and I'm going to put it in my water every morning. That's a quest. I'm going on a 30-day quest of putting Vital Greens in my water every day, and then I'm going to drink my water. That's my quest. And then you might start off that quest fantastic. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, no problems. Day 6, day 7, day 8, you might start to drop off. Or you might just forget it. Or it might be too much of a hassle. Or there might be something that happens. And it's actually A, yes, we want to drink the thing in our water. But B, it's in the days that we don't do it that we actually find some of our limiting beliefs. Or it helps us to discover some of the excuses that we create as acceptable for not actually doing the thing. So for example, on day 8, you might go, oh, I don't have enough time. And so then you might expand time. Like, what does it mean to not have enough time? Not enough time to actually do something that's healthy for me. So if I don't have enough time to do something that's healthy for me, how much do I value me? And as I unpack that story of how much do I value me, there might be some stories that come up that said, for example, my mother might have said to me, and this is not a real life example, it's just me making something up. My mother might have said to me that you need to not be selfish. It's not all about you. Making it all about you is being selfish. And so as you followed that pathway along of like, I don't have enough time, making time for being healthy means that I'm selfish. My mother said this thing about not being selfish, and so I'm not going to do this thing because it makes me selfish. Now, that's not necessarily a logical string that we actually consciously make. It's a subconscious patterning that we create. So at some point in time, our mother taught us that we are not to be selfish, that being selfish means that we're a bad girl, that we're not a good girl, that we're wrong, that there's something wrong with us, all of that type of stuff. And then we've implemented that and we're looking for evidence to make that true. So our brain always wants us to be right. And because our brain always wants us to be right, when we create one of these limiting beliefs, it sets about creating and finding the evidence of that. So a perfect example of that evidence type thing is, I know when I became pregnant with my first baby, suddenly there was heaps of pregnant women. There were not as many pregnant women until I became pregnant. I'm absolutely certain of that. Well, I'm not, because I know that the truth is that when something like that happens for us, we suddenly see it happening for other people. Like if you got engaged, you suddenly see all these other people who are going to have weddings. If you buy a red car, you suddenly automatically see all the red cars that are out there. You thought it was unique, and now you're like, oh my God, there's so many red cars. And it's because your attention is focused there. That it then highlights to you the things that are out in the world, because your brain is looking for the evidence. Your brain is focusing on the thing that you're looking at. And so when we create these beliefs as children, we then spend our life creating the evidence that they're true, so that then we can't change them. But the truth is, we totally can. We can totally change them because we created them after all. We created the meaning that we gave to events that happened into our life, and we get to create new meaning. So we get to change those beliefs that have been keeping us stuck, that have been keeping us in the pattern that we have been living out. So for example, one of the limiting beliefs that I had was, so if you've hung around this space for a little while, you might have known last year I wrote a post that was called Little Girl Hiding Under the Table. And it was a little bit of a message for myself, for everybody else as well, where I spoke to my little person who was hiding under the table. Dear little girl hiding under the table. And I wrote to her, and I wrote a heartfelt letter to that little version of me that was hiding under the table. Now, there were some limiting beliefs that I created in that moment of hiding under the table. Now, I can't remember what it was that I did wrong, but I know that I must have done something wrong, or something that was not going to be approved of, because I hid under the table. And that was my get out of jail card, was if I hide under the table, she can't get me. And then I'm not going to get in trouble for the thing. But, you know, little did I know that when I hid under the table, I literally told her that I'd done something wrong. And then she'd go looking for it, and she'd find the thing that I'd done wrong, and then I'd get in trouble. In that moment, I created this belief of I'm safe under the table. If I'm under the table, I'm safe. Hiding under the table keeps me safe. And that hiding under the table, or hiding keeps me safe, turned into a belief of hiding keeps me safe. If I stay hidden, I'm safe. If I don't hide, I'm not safe. And so right now I'm doing something that would be considered very unsafe because I'm not hiding. I'm here on Facebook Live where anybody could come across this thing, anybody could comment on it, anybody could make an opinion of me and what I have to say, and that would be unsafe. But I kind of need to do that in order for you to know who I am, in order for you to know what I talk about and what I focus on and how I help my clients. I need to do those things. And so in order to have been able to do that, I needed to change that belief that hiding keeps me safe, when actually hiding just keeps me hidden. Like, the illusion is hiding keeps me safe. The truth is hiding keeps me hidden. And if I want to change and create transformation for other people, and I want to help them transform their own lives, then I need to move from hiding and being safe into being seen, so that they can see me, they can hear me, they can know what I actually am able to help them with. And that's how I can get them in their space of transformation. But I first had to transform my own belief around staying hidden and it not being safe. So when I go through this process of changing my limiting beliefs and starting to look at them, one of the things that I do is I write down what that feeling is. So for example, if I'm in a particular scenario and something triggers me, and we all know that, we've all got these little triggers where we're snapped right back to that feeling that we felt one time in our life. So let's say I'm having an experience and I'm like, oh, there's that feeling. I know what that feels like. The next question that I'm going to ask is, what does that feel like in my body? Where does it sit? Is it heavy? Is it light? What texture would I give it? What color would I give it if I could give it a color? Where is that sitting? And so then the reason I'm doing that is that I'm bringing attention to the feeling, so I can remember what that feels like and get a strong sense of that feeling. Then I'm going to ask, when have I felt this before in my life? When in my life have I felt this before? Often, and sometimes you need to create space and allow for it to come forward, often it will come with a memory of a particular time in your life or a particular thing in your life. And as you sit there, and so it's not the name of the feeling, it's the feeling of the feeling that's important. Because we can have a feeling that feels like anger in one moment, but in another moment we call it frustration or we call it something else. And it's the important feeling, how that feeling feels, that is actually an important part. Because remember, our language as children is different to our language as adults. As adults, we have lots of names to call things. Like we might say something is frustrating. We might say something is annoying, or it's just not fun, or whatever. We might actually have some language that we didn't have as kids around it. And it's not the language of the feeling that's important. It is the feeling of the feeling. So get into the feeling of the feeling that you felt, or when that trigger comes up, or when you think about that thing that's limiting you. Then ask yourself that question. When was the first time in my life that I felt this feeling? And you might not get to something that was under 8. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. It just depends. But let your intuition lead you. Let your inner voice actually lead you. Because sometimes we need to heal some of the more recent wounds before we can heal some of the more deeper wounds. And so when was the first time that I can recall feeling this feeling? And then often that memory will come up. And as the memory comes up, you get into your journal and you write that memory out completely. So write out everything you can remember, and as much of it as you can remember. So even to the point of, like, there was yellow daffodils that were over in the corner. There was a chair that sat this way. You might even want to draw a diagram. Just so that you can help yourself get really into that moment again, where you can feel that feeling again, and you can ask yourself this next question. Like, as you know what happened, and you recall what happened, you want to ask yourself, what did I make that mean? What meaning did I give that? Kelly's saying, I feel like I've been hit by an emotional bus today. We did this activity with her, so she of course knows what that feels like. So what meaning did you give that? What did you make that situation mean about you? Who you are? Who you're allowed to be? What other people think of you? What meaning did you give that situation? And you want to go into that and you want to work that out and ask the question of, like, once you've found something, once you've found whatever that meaning is. So for me, hiding under the table, I gave the table the meaning of keeping me safe. Hiding under the table is keeping me safe. We ask the question, is that ultimately true? Is it ultimately true? Is the table keeping you safe? No, the table is just keeping me hidden. It's not actually keeping me safe, because once I'm not hidden, I'm not going to be safe. So as we start to unpack that, we want to ask, is this ultimately true? So that we can challenge those limiting beliefs that we've actually created in that moment, that we can challenge that belief and we can create a different belief. The next thing that we want to ask is, what am I not seeing? Show me, guide me, lead me into what I'm not seeing here. When you make yourself available for seeing the things that you don't see, what you do is you move what we know as the 3 Ds. Delete, distort, generalize. DDG. Delete, distort, generalize. That's what our brain does. It tries to put everything into boxes. And if it doesn't match our belief, we try and delete it. If it's not quite fitting our belief, we might distort it. And if it is somewhat there but not completely, we might generalize it. So we delete, distort, and generalize. And when we open ourselves up to be willing to see things differently, I'm willing to see things differently. God, angels, universe, show me this differently. I'm willing to see this differently. We actually open ourselves up to be able to see more than what we saw previously. And so asking that question in your journal and answering that question, or just letting it sit with you, is the exact thing that you often need in order to be able to be open to seeing things differently. But once we've acknowledged that the belief that we gave is not ultimately true, it's not a universal truth, then we're actually able to start freeing ourselves from that belief. And then once we've done that, I generally take my clients through that process of like, where in this memory can I say I thank you? Where can I bring a thank you in here? It could be that I'm thankful that I've taken the moment and given myself the time to walk through this belief or walk through this scenario or find this thing. It could be I'm thankful that this and this happened. I'm thankful that I learned something from this. Then we go through and bring in some forgiveness. Where do I need to say, where do I need to forgive? Who do I need to forgive? Can I say I forgive you? Then we might go in and say thank you. Where can we say thank you in this situation? Then where can I bring some love? Who needs love? And it might be that little person that went through that experience. I'm going to love them. I'm going to write them a love letter. I'm going to tell them everything that they need to hear, everything that I wish that they'd heard in that moment, everything that if I was to go back and speak to them in that exact moment of time, here's what I would say to them. We might also need to bring some love to the magical big people in our life that were a part of that scenario, because for us, we are the main character of our lives. For them, they are the main character of their lives. And so we hear what is appropriate for us to hear, and we delete, block, generalize, distort, all of the other stuff. They hear what is important for their lives based on their current level of thinking and how they perceive and see the world. So we might need to bring in some love for them because we don't understand everything. Oh, yay, Kelly, she wrote her letter and it was very emotional. I'm so glad you wrote that letter. Well done. So writing those letters to ourselves can be really useful. But then bringing in that, where can I say thank you? Where can I bring some forgiveness? Where can I say sorry? Where can I bring some love into that memory? Then we want to move to the next step of going, what is the new belief I want to create? Instead of seeing that the table is keeping me safe, what is the new belief that I want to create? Well, my new belief that I created from that was that I don't need to be safe. I don't need a table to keep me safe. I am safe because I trust that I have and will have the resources to deal with anything that I need to deal with. I trust that I have everything that I need in order to deal with whatever it is that I am faced with. That is the new belief that I put in. And so then when I create that new belief, I then go ahead and create like a mantra out of it. So I generally will get myself into this state of like, rhythmically saying the thing. And sometimes doing it with music is really helpful. So if you put on a layer of music and you're talking over the top of that music, like, I believe that I am safe in all things. I believe that I am resourced for every situation that I come across. I believe that all things come to me are for my good. I believe that I am safe no matter what. I believe that within me safety resides, not outside of me. I believe that I am safe from all things because I am all things. And I really get into this place of actually just putting in that new belief. And I might find one that really resonates with me, and I might turn that into a reminder on my phone. And I'll put that reminder in there and I'll say, hey Siri, put this in as a reminder at this time, etc. Oh, now my computer's going to say, hey, what do you want? I'm not really talking to you. And so I put that reminder into my phone and I get it to remind me that thing every day at a particular time. And then my commitment to myself is to read that reminder out loud when it pops up so that I'm consistently reminding myself. Because once we move from the place of what we don't want, we look at the wounds that are there, we move into the love and all of that, we move into what we do want. Our job now is to change our own minds. Set about changing our own minds. And that's what we do when we are overcoming these limiting beliefs. We're changing our own minds. And just like a path that is well worn, the limiting belief is well worn in your mind. And if you're not thinking, it's very easy to steer back to that limiting belief and start walking that track out. In order to make the new track that we want, we have to walk that track all the time. We have to well press that track in. We have to keep walking over it. We have to keep treading it in. We have to keep doing those things so that this old track of our thinking starts to grass over and it grows over and we can't see that track anymore. And the new track is there. And we can move to that track instantly because we've subconsciously worn it down. We've created a path that's easy for us to go on. And that's some of what we want to do when we're changing and moving and shifting our limiting beliefs. Now, this isn't always easy. This isn't always an easy process to do on your own. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can just be journaling and you can look for the thing and you can find the thing and you can move through that process all on your own. Other times, working with a coach can help you find those things more quickly and more easily because somebody outside of us doesn't have the conditioning of us. So they can see the blind spots. They can see the things that we aren't seeing because they aren't conditioned to think the same way that we do. So I'm going to give you an example of this. For example, and you might know this to be true for you, that your mother knows what words to say to you to try and get you to do something. There's something that she wants you to do. She knows how to say it to you to make you kind of want to do it or feel obligated to do it. And she'll have some words and she'll have some tricks and she'll have some of those types of things. My mother used to say some particular phrases to me, and I knew when she said them that she wanted me to say this thing back or justify this thing or do this thing. Now, when my husband came into the scene, he didn't have the conditioning that I had. He didn't have the years of having her do that pattern in his life. So he was less conditioned to respond to those phrases. He was less conditioned to respond to the words and to the intonation and into the subliminal messaging, like the context of the message. He wasn't attuned to that because he hadn't had that conditioning. And so she would try and say things to him as if she would say them to me to try and get me to do the thing. And it just wouldn't work. And it was always funny because, like, I could see what she was trying to get him to do. And he's like, yeah, nah. Because he didn't have that conditioning. So our coaches are sitting outside of our conditioning. So they are more open to be able to see and lead us to find some of this stuff. Because they're outside of our conditioning. They can hear our language, and that's what I teach when I'm teaching Coaching Academy. I'm teaching listening to the language, being a language detective, listening for what they're saying, listening for what they're not saying, listening to the intonation, listening to all of that stuff in order to help you find the things inside of you that need to change in order for you to change that thinking. And I started this conversation by saying if you want different results, you've got to do things differently. And in order to do things differently, especially over a longer period of time, in order to create long-lasting results, then you have to change the thinking that creates the action that then creates the results. And we change that thinking by finding our limiting beliefs, shifting and doing this emotional work of releasing the emotions that we've held trapped, changing the meaning that we gave things, seeing the illusions for what they are, that they're not actually truth, that they are an illusion of truth, and then starting to move through that process of changing our own mind by installing the beliefs that we actually want versus the ones that we've been handed down, or the ones that we have haphazardly taken on board because of the training or because of the conditioning that we've received as we're growing up. As we shift the beliefs that we have, we can create different actions because willpower will only work for a short period of time. Some people will say they have enormous willpower, and other people will say I have no willpower. Everyone has an amount of willpower, but the amount of willpower that you have will only last a certain period of time. After that period of time is over, it's then up to mind power. And the mind power will revert back to your old way of thinking if you don't do the work of changing the limiting thinking. if you don't go through that process of sifting through and seeing what are those things. And of course, if you're jumping on now, watch the replay. I've put a whole activity in here that you can actually do yourself at home in your own journal. But this is the work that we do in coaching sessions. In a coaching session, you might share with me, and this is how generally I would run a coaching session, is that I would ask, what do you want to focus on today? And you might come with a thing that you want to focus on, like, I really want to focus on applying for jobs that I want to get. And so I might ask you some questions, like how would applying for jobs that you want to get serve you? And I would continue to ask questions. And what we might eventually chunk down to and get to is that you don't believe that you're allowed to apply for those jobs because you are not 100% qualified for it. And then we might chunk down even more to, when was the time in your life when you believed that you weren't worthy because you didn't have a piece of paper that said that you could have that thing. And we might chunk down to a memory as a kid when you didn't feel worthy of something, and then you felt guilty and shameful and so on. And then we can change the limiting belief that was created in that moment. We can bring love to it. We can bring forgiveness to it. We can say thank you. We can do all of those things. And we can then change the belief and install a new one. And then we go about changing your mind. We go about retraining your mind to think differently about this thing. And it might be a whole bunch of different activities that you do that. I put things in my phone. You might put it on a wall. You might write out lines. You remember in school when you got in trouble, your teacher would say, Johnny will not do blah, blah, blah. You might write out lines to help get that in there. You might do incantations where you're rhythmically calling the stuff in and you're saying it and you're calling it upon yourself. You might write out some prose. You might do all of those things. You might even find a song that kind of really matches that and you walk around singing it. You might do all of those things because it's whatever you need to do to actually help change your mind that is what you need to do so that you can change your thinking, and it's no longer willpower, it's mental power. It's coming out of the way that you think, and it creates the actions that you want, and then you create the results that you are longing for. So there we go. That is limiting thinking. It's something that I do a lot with my clients in pretty much every session that I'm working with them in as a coach. It's what I do with my business coaching clients as we work through why they maybe are not doing the things that they know that they need to do, or if there's any blocks that are coming up for them, so that they can change that, so they can start changing their own minds and start thinking differently so that they can create the results that they want to have. Now, this is stuff that I teach you to do in Coaching Academy. So if you've always wanted to be a coach or you've wanted to add coaching to your current profession, you are more than welcome to come and join me for Coaching Academy. It is a 6-ish month program. It's 5 months, but like it's 5 months, but sometimes it's kind of 6. And you take on some pro bono clients, you practice with each other, you have lots of practical elements of it. Generally, we end the session with a live coaching session, depending on how many people are in the room, where one of the students is coaching another student, and then I'm jumping in and helping refine if we need to. Sometimes I'm demonstrating some coaching. So for that whole time, you are immersed thoroughly in coaching, and you come out the other end knowing how to use your skills and implementing them with your clients on an everyday basis. And you get to do that all of the time. Like once you're in. There is no reoccurring payment that you have to do. There's no, you have to sign up for the next year. It's once you're in. That's how it is. You stay in. It doesn't close. You don't end up having to sign up for another one. It's that. So I've got students that did it last year that are going to be joining again this year, and you can join in right with them. So I'm inviting everybody who would love to do this to come and join me for Coaching Academy. It's $2,500. There is a payment plan. If you want the link, let me know. I'm going to be talking about coaching again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be focusing in on the inner child and doing some inner child work and why that's important. One of the beautiful things about learning to be a coach is that you end up with a skill that you can use and create a business with. Plus, you do your own work because everybody in that group needs to practice their coaching skills and harness, refine and work on their coaching skills more. So you get so much opportunity to actually be a coaching client yourself when you're in the actual course. Which I think is an amazing opportunity, because you get to feel what it's like to be on the other end, and you get to feel like what it's like to be as the coach as well, and you really get to experience both sides of that. So you know what it feels like when you're working with your real clients, and you've got the opportunity to see how other people do that thing as well. So again, I'll invite you to come and join me for Coaching Academy. We start on the 19th of February. If you need the link, DM me. I'm happy to have a chat. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. And I'll see you tomorrow as I talk. Oh, actually, it's not tomorrow. I think it's Friday. On Friday, I'm going to be talking about the inner child work. So if you're loving learning about these things, come along on Friday and I'll happily share some more with you. All right, bye for now. Have an amazing day. See you later.